All right.
So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you all?
Excellent.
Good. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to talk about the Viking armour and the weapons and how they worked against each other and the evolution of such. So as you can see, I'm just in here pretty chilled out, some normal clothes. This would be your everyday walkabout wear. I'm just missing a hat on my head because it's not on underneath my helmet there. So under here I've just got some Viking trousers. Under here I've got my under tunic, and then over the top here is just my tunic. So very light for this kind of weather. White is very much preferable to be wearing, unlike what you can see Pat there in his blue. He'll be warming up very, very quickly under this sun here. Pat himself is in wool. Wool's very, very good for keeping the rain off. It does keep you warm. It does have a kind of waterproof protection to it. It only lasts so long though, and then when it gets damp it gets very, very heavy. Myself, I'm more in linen, much lighter, much more summer gear, very airy, and it wicks the sweat away from the body as well, so you don't end up dripping wet before getting in armour, never mind when you're in armour. So to start getting armoured, the first thing we put on is this, and it's just a padded jacket, also known as a gambeson. Okay, and what this does, it protects from crushing blows from weapons. So if you get your axe out there. Alright, that's a bit of a sharp weapon. Whoa. So this is the equivalent of wrapping yourself in a sleeping bag. There we go. Okay, so that's me nice and armoured up, so if he hits me with the flat of the blade, I shouldn't feel it. Yeah, this is actually very much lighter than they would have been, a bit more flexible, just modern day for us, just to survive the heat here. Yeah. Well, the next, I'll let Pat talk about what he's wearing on his chest here while I get myself into some mail.
What I'm wearing is a different style of armor they would have used at the time. This is leather with bits of metal plate attached to it. This would have given me not so much protection against blunt force, but a bit more protection against something sharp. Because unlike in the movies, armor actually works. It will have to hit me in the same spot several times to cut through the leather, and if it hits the metal, that's not going to do any damage at all. It's a bit lighter than what he's wearing, but it's also quite a bit hotter because the leather is not thin, and the sun would have heated it up, and myself would have heated it up, and it acts as a great insulator. So all that heat would stay in. You ready?
Yeah. So what I'm going to attempt to put on just now is chainmail. That's a Viking term. It would have really been known as mail at the time. This is butted mail. It's just got little rings that are butted together. You do get riveted mail as well. It roughly weighs about 4 stone. So particularly heavy. If anyone wants a quick feel of the weight of it, just before I chuck it on here. So yeah, quite heavy, yeah?
Oh, good to see. Yeah.
Pretty substantial. So this will be the fun bit, you get to watch me squirm for a wee minute while I try and get it on. Pull me down at the back there, please.
Where are you going to go?
Okay. Hey. There we go. So what this will do, this will protect against the slicing blows at the edge of a sword or an axe. So underneath I've got the padding that protects against the crushing of bones, and then this protects against the slicing. Oh. Like that. There's no way he's getting through that. About the only thing that can manage to penetrate through chainmail here, or mail, is arrows. Yeah, arrows manage to get in, they split the rings apart very, very quickly. As you start moving, it rips itself apart while you're fighting, and you get tangled up in it as well. So yeah, very heavy, but unlike the armour, it lets lots of air through, and on a hot summer's day you get some funny sunburn on your arms. Okay, the next thing's head protection. Oh no, sorry, belt.
Yep.
Oh.
Got it?
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to fight with something like that.
So the belt is just to stop it wriggling around. It takes some of the weight off my shoulders as well and puts it onto the hips. Off the belt you can see I've got my wee drinking horn here as well. That's just water. It's quite common use to have horn being used for various reasons because it's hard wearing, whereas clay, pottery and that, as you're travelling it tends to break. Sorry, oh there we go, it's tight. Trying to find, there we go. And then just on here as well, just a general eating knife and spike. We don't really have forks at this time period, it is more picks rather than forks. They didn't come till a wee bit later on. Next thing's our helmets. Something common misconception about the Vikings is they had horns in their helmets. That is not the case. Where we reckon this comes from is some burials where they're buried with their trinkets, things like drinking horns, and we think just because of the placement, people thought at one point, especially in the Victorian era, that they were attached to the helmet. They were not. There is later on King Henry VIII. He does have a helmet made for him with these horns on it, and that's the first instance that we see of horns being on a helmet. So this is just a nasal helm. Underneath here you can just see I've got some padding. Takes the sweat off and again just protects from those crushing blows as well. On the front I've just got a nasal piece, so this being a nasal helm, and it just protects from any swords coming up hitting my face. Patrick here, underneath he's got, underneath the chainmail here, he's got an arming cap, which is just the equivalent of this. On top he's got his mail coif, and it does the exact same thing for this. It just protects against the slicing blows, stops anyone sneaking up behind them or getting a wee cheeky stab in the neck there. What's your helmet called, sorry? Just a Viking helm?
Yeah, just a helm.
Okay.
I don't know of any precise name for this style. Just a bowl helm.
Okay. Oh. So as we can see here, helmet very heavy, it gets hot very, very quickly. It heats up in this nice sun. They would have painted them in some cases as well. They could have painted them white and that would have reflected some of the heat away. It also stops them rusting. One of the advantages of this kind of helmet, domes out this way and it should protect from blows coming down and should slide off the shoulders. Directs it away.
And his nasal helm, my helm is a slightly older style than his. They would have worn these before, but you'd have had the problem of, like you said, blades coming into the face. Someone could chop the top of my head off. But with his nasal, I hit and his face is protected.
Yeah. Alright. The last piece of armour that we're both wearing is just some gloves. Okay, again they just protect from the crushing and the slicing, they keep your hands all in one piece. You see one's mail backed here, this one isn't because I don't need it with the shield hand. The shield keeps it nice and protected. Pat himself is just wearing normal leather. It would have been quite a rare, not rare, but not often to see the mail on the back of the glove itself. Sometimes you would see that would be all in one. It would be a whole piece with the gloves made into the mail itself. Okay.
And another reason for the gloves is to help us keep a positive grip on our weapons. Because as you're fighting, your hands will get sweaty, you're gonna get blood on them, so your grip will become quite slippy. But between the leather and the handles, my enemy's blood will actually become a bit sticky and help me hold on to it a bit better.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put this on because it's gonna take me 10 minutes to do these toggles up. But this is my sword belt. This would sit on the left-hand side of me, so I could then draw it with my right. Most people fought right-handed. This is especially important when you're in a shield wall. Something we'll explain later on for the kids' army, but it means you're all fighting in unison, you're all one side. Later on in history, into the medieval period, it used to be if you were left-handed, you were sided with the devil. So it's just, and again, it was a way of just keeping people using their right hand, so when it came to fighting, they would all be uniform fighting. Okay, see the different parts of the sword here? We've got the main blade. It's nice and easy. There's a groove down the middle. Does anyone know what the groove down the middle's for? Pulling out blood. No, none of those. There's a very common misconceptions. All it is there for is to make the blade lighter. You don't need the strength in the middle. You just need the strength on the outside here. The tempering of the blades keeps them strong enough to survive long enough through a battle. So it takes just maybe a few 100 grams out, but all that few 100 grams makes all the difference over a 16-hour battle. Next piece we've got here is the crossguard. That does two things. It protects my fingers from enemies' swords coming down, chopping fingers, but it's also used as a weapon. These are pointed for when you're up close, you can get right in, get underneath, in jabby bits, sore bits, any exposed bits for really close-up, face-to-face fighting. Again, leather handle, much the reason for the same as leather gloves, just keeps your hand in place and stops it slip sliding about with all the horrible gory blood that we are. And then the pommel at the bottom here. That's just this bit here. Again, it has two functions. It balances the blade out, stops the blade being so top heavy, so it doesn't drag you down every time you swing it. It makes it nice and easy to just swing around. But also, again, for getting up nice and close and personal, you're up and you go bash. Yeah, so, and that's where we get the term to take a pummeling from. Is there anything different about your one? Yours, Patrick's here is very much more ornate. He's spent a wee bit more money on his. If you have a look at his crossguard and his pummel, you will see the copper inside it. The whole part of being Viking is to decorate yourself as much as possible and show off your wealth. So that's
as
what
a
part of
professional
this
soldier,
is.
I'm not spending it on lands or family. My money is going back into my gear. So I've got the nice little bit of decoration here, and my crossguard, you'll see, is a bit smaller, quite different from his. Again, an earlier design, whereas this would, it supplies your basic protection there, but it's quite easy to go past it, whereas his, I can come down further away from the blade and still not get his fingers.
You need to invest a wee bit more money.
Yeah, I do. I need to get some mail.
Okay. So then we move on to just this. It's a seax. All this is just a shorter version of a sword. What they would have done is when a sword broke, they wouldn't have just chucked the parts away, they would have made them into new blades. Metal's very, very expensive and very hard to forge. We're only really just getting into the era of steel at this point, learning about putting the carbon into the steel to make it more stronger and flexible, more than the iron swords and harder than the bronze swords, that came before it. You just see on the end there's some antler. Very common handle material as well, very easy to make. You just take your antler, you soak it in water for 24 hours and then push it on with a tang and just leave it to set, and that antler dries solid around it and it's never coming out again unless you soak it for a few hours. What's that? Again, nice close weapon, so usually you'd start going down to shorter weapons once your sword's broken. Swords would very commonly break. It would be unlikely that you would finish the same battle that you finish with the same sword that you started with in battle. So this is, as you can see, Pat, if he takes his sword out here, has a very clear reach advantage on me. So you try and get in, round, pull dagger out, and then stab it, stab, stab it, stab. You're looking for the weak points here. You're not getting enough of a swing on this to break bones.
The axe was another very common weapon for everyone to have. It was a tool. You got your firewood with it, to cook your food. You had your axe. And in the cases of he got inside of my sword, he comes within perfect range of my axe.
Also want to use that. This is a bearded axe. It's called a bearded axe because it's just got this wee beard on the end there, the wee hook on the end. This would serve a couple of functions. The main one, I'll hand you this one, sorry, you can, alright, yeah, would be hooking over shields, pulling out, and then stabbing him. Another one, if you're a very skilled axeman, not everyone could do this. If Pat were to stab me with his sword, you could get in, hook the blades, and take control of it. So, but that would take
He's still working on that skill.
some practice, yeah. Something I need to work on. That's where you would come in with your blade and stab. Okay, and then probably...
You don't use shield.
Yeah, I did! Oh, it's because it's heavy. Okay, and the last one, we may think of a shield as armour, but absolutely not. They're very much for defence, but you can also attack as well. So we've got a boss on here. That would be for getting up really close. Again, if you'd manage to get out of the way and bash. Okay. But again, very much defensive. Again, at 1:20, we're going to be recruiting for a kids' army, and we'll talk more in depth about the shield walls and war snouts that form the Vikings' tactics of attack.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Please come and see us up at our camp if you want to have a feel of any of the weapons or armour or ask us any questions. Please do come up and have an ask. Thank you.
Fab. Thank you.